Good morning, everybody. I am going to do a quick-ish demo today. It's a pattern that I really love. It's called Rain, and it's a very simple pattern. I'm going to be doing these on Saturdays, about 11:30. To kind of revisit some patterns that either I don't use as much as I probably should, or that I don't see in a lot of people's work that I think are really amazing patterns. And hopefully just to kind of give some of my students and friends who are interested in Zentangle but maybe would like to supplement the classes they're taking, or that can't take classes because they're far away, or their teachers aren't teaching, or they're just looking for something to do. We're having, we're all kind of having a lot of time on our hands these days. So with that said, I'm going to demo this a couple different times, and you can just watch me or you can follow along, and we will go from there. So this is Rain right here. This is your classic pattern of Rain, and then I did it with a couple different variations there. And then this is fun. I kind of used it as leaves with a paradox type rose. And in this one, I actually used it very tiny as a string. So just some ideas for ways to use it. You can do all kinds of fun things with really any pattern that you are doing. One of the reasons that I thought these would be fun to do is also as I play with doing more and more online classes, it lets me experiment with different lighting and where the best places to do videoing is, and it also forces me to remember to keep my hands in the right place. So if I happen to wander off, if you would just give me a heads up in the comments, or if you have any questions or anything, let me know. I'm going to try and keep an eye on it, but I'm not great at reading and tangling at the same time. So if I don't catch your question, just ask again. All right. So I've put my border on, my dots and my lines, and now I am going to take my pen, and I'm going to do this the traditional way, and then I'm going to just kind of play with it a little bit a couple times. So I'm going to start by making a line, right? And then I'm going to turn my tile just a little bit, and they're not actually leaving from the same space. I left a little bit of a spot there. Make another. Right. Turn my tile. This one is going in a slightly different direction. And one more. So you kind of have like this fan, these 5 lines, or however many you want. It doesn't have to be 5. That's how I learned it. I actually had a conversation with a friend in CZT the other night. I think it was the other night. It's hard to tell. Time is meaningless. And we talked about how once you learn a pattern, especially at the beginning, or when you're first learning, or when you're first taught it, you think that's the only way that the pattern can be done. And it takes a while, and it takes a lot of practice and a lot of playing with it to realize that you don't have to do it that way. You can make a pattern completely different. I briefly mentioned the I call these paradox roses, and this is a traditionally done as a triangle pattern, but I actually really love it as a circle and to use it as roses. So that's just kind of what I mean there. All right, so you have your fan. I just drew on myself. And now what you're going to do is you're going to take your pen and you're going to start at the bottom, and you're going to make like these zigzaggy lines going across your first lines so that you have these triangles going on either side. Okay? I like to alternate them a little bit so that you don't have them fighting for space, but you don't want it to look like it's actually zigzagging either. So I kind of mix it up, right? So here I want to go this way, but I'm going to force myself to go that way. Okay, and they don't have to be all the same, in the same direction, the same size. You can play with them a lot. I see that Shar just said that she likes rain as a border too. Border, I love this as a border. And I don't usually fill it in. I just kind of leave it all zigzaggy. It's super fun. Maybe I'll show that too. It's one of the biggest things for me in teaching virtually, and in my previous life, my corporate life, I did a lot of virtual training. I used to teach my teams and things like that without, and we didn't even usually use video. It was often just audio. But I tend to be a really quiet tangler, so when I do things like this and I teach tangle classes, I forget that I need to talk. So it feels a little strange to just kind of be randomly talking all to myself without anybody to talk to. All right, so this tends to look a little chaotic and a little messy, but sometimes that's great because a lot of my other tangling tends to be very precise, very organic, and this forces me out of my comfort zone. And if I'm using it for relaxation, for stress reduction, I need to pay attention to what I'm doing. I can't always be in my super flowy go-to tangles, because then I can still wander off in my own head, and I don't always want to do that. So I switched my pen. You might have saw I was using an 01. I switched to a PN because I'm going to color these in. The PN's just a little bigger. It's about a 5-point instead of a 01, and that gives me more time to, or more coverage, I should say. That way you don't have to sit here and watch me color for hours. Okay, you can get whatever size pens you like. I'm really loving the PNs lately, although I use a different pressure when I use them. But I like the PNs because I find that I'm not quite as hard on them. They have a plastic nib. But I use everything from 005s all the way up to 8s, depending on my mood and what I'm doing. So all I'm doing now is I'm coloring in all these little triangles. And you could put patterns in them, or you could leave them empty, or you could, you know, make stripes, or you could color in the negative space. Really, there's so many different things to do with this. Because I'm coloring in and I am using traditional Zentangle tiles, I'm alternating where I'm going to color, because when you do fill in a larger section, you are putting down a lot of ink on cotton paper. And while tangle or microns don't often smear, if you put a lot of ink down on cotton, you do have to give it just a minute to dry. I'm going to be doing these, like I said, every Saturday, and I'm going to do one pattern at a time. And then I am offering some more in-depth classes, of course. I'm doing a 101 class tomorrow, actually, and that is a pay-as-you-go class, or pay-what-you-can class. So if you know somebody that hasn't taken a 101 class and maybe they're not working and they can't afford it, that's my gift to my students. If you have taken a lot of 101 classes, I do ask that you leave the space in that particular class open and sign up for another one of them, just because either my 202 or something like that, just because I want to give people who haven't had a chance to take maybe more than one class the opportunity to do that. And I am going to offer some more low price and free classes. We're all in this together, right? If you haven't played with this pattern before, I really encourage you to do that. It's so easy and it's so fun, and it's one I never think to do. When I was making my list of which tangles I wanted to include, I was like, oh, rain, I forgot that even existed. And yet I used to use it all the time. I know I see a number of tanglers are following along, and I am curious, what patterns do you forget exist, but that when you do them, you find you really love them? I'd really love to know if I'm the only one that forgets this one, or if we all kind of do that. So this is one of those patterns that is easy to get lost in, just the coloring, the taking the time to make those really dark marks. I don't know about you, but I love watching a spot on my tile go from white to ink black. There's just something so soothing about that. Sometimes I put music on, but I am not sure about volume and stuff yet when I do a live. So I have left it very, very quiet, and it's very nice to just have no sounds a little bit. Although the pigeons that live outside my window are making a little bit of noise. They have babies out there. Alright, we're almost almost done with all this coloring. I love the sound of pens on paper too. I know that some people are not fans of that sound, but I love it. All right. So I have these all colored in, and that's a very satisfying thing for me. It's just to see that sharp dark against that that light. So I'm going to put an aura around this entire pattern. Okay, I'm going to switch back to my 01 now that I'm done coloring it. And auras are an echo of the line that are already there, right? And this just really makes it pop. And you could have left it just like that if you wanted to. Though rain does have an aura. And it's okay if they kind of touch or they overlap. So if you were not coloring this in, this is an incredibly fast tangle to draw. Coloring it in takes a little bit more time, but tangling really isn't about rushing. It's about just taking a few minutes for yourself and finding your quiet space, reconnecting with your own brain. Taking a little mini vacation from the world. The way I shade rain depends on how I've used it. Usually there's not a lot to actually shade on the pattern itself unless I've filled in the little triangles with their own pattern. But I often shade it so it looks like it's popping more off the page. Nothing terribly complicated, just kind of a reminder that there's so many patterns out there. And for those of you that are not regular tanglers, patterns are everywhere in the world. Not every pattern that repeats is a tangle, but all tangles are patterns. Okay, so I'm going to set that off to the side. And I am going to do this a little different, and I'm not going to color it in this time. Okay, so I'm going to make my dots. I'm actually going to take my pen, and I'm going to use it as a border, because why not, right? So this time, instead of making pencil border, I'm actually making a pen border. And I'm just connecting my dots. Okay, and I'm going to curve my lines a little bit as I do it. So instead of it being so sharp, now it looks kind of scallopy as we go around. Okay. And then if I were to want to fill these in, maybe I want to put just some little stripes in there. Something real simple, real quick and easy. Get a very different look depending on how you play with it. There we go. And now I have a border around a tangle that I can do something fun with. This particular use of it as a border gives this tile now looks kind of almost comic strippy to me. It looks like something that would have a comic or a cartoon in the middle. Right? Okay. So I'm going to do, I'm going to be doing, as you can see, little ones here. These are going to be just some examples of, I'm going to keep this tile going for the next 9 weeks, and I'm going to do the pattern that I did in one little square so that you can see how they all look when they're all put together. So I just did a zigzaggy line instead of the fan shape, and I'm going to zigzag my way around it. Because sometimes it's fun, as we saw in square one, if you're in there, to take a line for a walk. All right, so that's really all I have to share with you about rain today. Like I said, just a quick little demo, kind of give you an idea of a pattern that you might not have thought of in a while. And I will see you all again soon. Have a great Saturday. Do something fun, and everybody be safe.